Good morning, good afternoon, evening, everyone. I know I have 20 minutes. I'm going to talk through very quickly a few things. When the Zinav team and we were talking a couple of days back, Zinav is very passionate about, how customers are looking at this digital transformation, especially in this scenario of the pandemic. And we were talking on how enterprises really need to relook at digital transformation. So the next 15 to 20 minutes, I'm going to talk through what we see in the real world of this enterprise digital transformation. Has digital transformation really delivered the results, right? And so that's how I'm going to start off. So this is the first thing, it's some very interesting data points, which you would look at this, right? So digital transformation has been there now for the last 4 or 5 years. A lot of our customers, come back and say, yeah, we are a digitally transformed company. Is the business really getting the results of digital transformation? Number one, is technology really thinking there is a digital transformation that they have truly implemented in their IT systems, in their business systems, right? And then how do people really feel, right? This is just not about the customers. This is also about the human elements of an organization. So I want to walk you through a few data points, and very surprising data points. And this is a research, Accenture did, a few months back post the pandemic. Very interesting data points. I'm going to take the left of this part, the talent and organization, a very undermined effort in the overall scope of digital transformation. People tend to overlook the human element of a digital transformation. So if you look at it, 2/3 believe, and this is the data we collected, with the CDOs, with the head of businesses, CXOs, more than 200 companies, right, where we interviewed. And if you look at it, 2/3 of the talent believe that they don't have the right skills to do the digital transformation. A very surprising data point, right? Because the digital transformation has been there over the last 7-8 years, and we would have thought, we would have think that, there is an hype cycle and it's really getting settled. But very honestly, that's not the truth. So that's number one. Number two, the business feels more than 50% of the technology leaders, the CDIO, the CIOs, right? Most of them are still stuck on, keeping the lights on, and they are frustrated at the speed of innovation at which technology can deliver the business transformation and the digital transformation, right? So that's the second part. The third one, if you look at it, even the CIOs and the CDOs accept they have failed to connect all their systems, whether it's the internal IT systems, whether it's the ecosystems, and whether it's the infrastructure, right? Properly to give a very unified view of things and realize the value of this digital transformation. And the fourth part is, data. Obviously, one of the big parts of this digital transformation is all about data, right? Once I have a common data platform, bringing in insane amount of intelligence through this data platform is going to be much higher, but the value of data has not been realized. So 2/3, again, 2/3 of the people feel that this has not been realized at all, right? And then if you look at it, we talk with the CDIOs, all the time, and the biggest frustration for the CDIOs is, they think they have done the right things, which might be true in many of the firms, but the business is really not realizing the transformation because they really lack the digital literacy, right? So that's the fifth point. But what has happened in the pandemic, in spite of all this stuff, the number of dollars they are spending on digital transformation has increased significantly. So the number of digital initiatives has increased by 25%, right? So there is a fundamental gap between, what the business thinks, what's the technology thinks, and what really the employees and the customers feel about this digital transformation. So with that, what we really honestly feel, if a firm needs to accelerate the digital transformation, typically firms which are not born in the world of digital, right? How do we accelerate the digital transformation? So this is something, which we have been analyzing. We have been talking to our customers, and we strongly believe that there are 3 core elements of digital enterprise success, right? And if we miss one of them, you would try and do the right things, but eventually, the results are not realized either by the business, nor by the corporate, nor by the customers, right? So the three things which we really think: number one is the speed of innovation. With the power of technology coming in, with the cloud providers providing insane amount of infrastructure, insane amount of APIs, insane amount of knowledge at the data layer, this is needs to happen at an economy of speed, right? It used to be in the old world, there is an economies of scale. A project, you'll be in an asset state, then there would be a business would come in for a request, right? Then you kick off a project and then move the system to a to-be state, right? That was like a 3 months, 6 months time cycle. So that world has gone, right? What the business is, a customer is launching is in a new market. The business is immediately requesting for changes at speed, and there is the technology that really enables it. But if you don't get your technology layers right, your speed of innovation is not going to happen, and you'll still be stuck with the economies of scale and would not transition to economies of speed. So that's number one. Number two, which and this is very passionate for me, what we really see in the marketplace is, while this technology transformation, they work with cloud providers, they work with so many partners, but the internal talent, whether it's the CIO's talent, CDO's talent, or the business talent, is really not taken seriously, right? And that's how we see many of what they call as digital native or cloud native organizations are really cloud native, because they miss the human element on this stuff, right? So that's the second part, which we honestly think, every one of our customers need to really look at it. And Accenture comes with a very, good point of view on talent and organization, how we should look at it. And I have a couple of slides on how we really think about talent and organization. And the third most important part is the business alignment, how business and technology need to come together to bring this digital transformation, right? Many cases we have seen, in spite of this digital transformation journey, the CIO, CDO organization is still seen by the business as order takers. And the CIO, CDO organization, really in many of the corporates which we, do this analysis, they don't even have a proper product management practice to push back on the business and really create the business value of this technology transformation. So the business IT alignment is going to be critical. So these are the three elements. So the next 5 minutes, I'm going to walk through what is our point of view on each of this and how we see, if we get these things right, the acceleration to digital enterprise is going to be much faster and better. So if I move on to the next one. So this is the technology stuff, right? Without diluting on the details, how we see the technology transformation needs to happen, right? We have a very simple point of view on this stuff, and it doesn't need to be force-fitted on any of these enterprises. But if you take a step back, you can easily categorize into these three layers, what I'm showing on the left side. The foundation layer is all about, your infrastructure, your common engineering practices, your common data lake layers, right? Common things which every one of the rest of the business, rest of IT, rest of products can start using, right? This is where working with the cloud providers, taking every ounce of the infrastructure, which is what, when Google, was launching all their programs, right? They were able to really seize every ounce of the infrastructure, how you create a foundation layer to do it. And with AWS, GCP, Azure really releasing so many features almost every week, how do I really exploit those features for a business and digital transformation? So getting your foundation layer is super important. Having a very core team working on foundation layer, really communicating to the rest of the teams what this foundation layer will support, so each one of them doesn't need to duplicate. As simple as you're not going to get enough data scientists for you to put in every business, right? But if the foundation layer has the right kind of data scientist and enables citizen developers and citizen data scientists, that's where the real scaling can happen. So that's the foundation layer for us. Then the enabling layer, typically with the CIOs and the CDOs, this is all your internal IT systems, your business process and workflows, how you interface with the external systems, and how you exploit the infrastructure. This is the second part of the transformation. The big part of it here is educating briefing the team how they should look at modernizing your systems and how you should exploit the foundation layer. So that's the second part, right? And the third one is all about your experience platforms and how you engage with your customers, right? So this again, how I would talk with the business, how would I expose my APIs to the external world, and how I would start, again, using my enabling and foundation layer to deliver the digital transformation, right? So that's the three layers. So when we get into an organization, if we are able to start relooking at how the present organization is and present architecture is, and slice it in this model, definitely it takes it, and we have seen that at a scale of innovation and at speed, right? So that is how we have been suggesting to our customers how they should be looking at it. And this is this three-tiered architecture. In one form or other it would fit in, but if we get these layers right and get the right kind of partners, that is where technology would definitely start delivering the value of the digital transformation. So that's the technology part of it, right? So if I move to the next two slides, very interesting data points again. Many of our customers, right, and this is one of the biggest failures of this enterprise moving into digital transformation, is the technology is there. So we have really done the technology transformation. So, immediately there is a cloud migration that has happened. Now, we are becoming a digital company. There is a big part of the human element that is getting missed completely. The existing talent really cannot pivot you into a digital world if you don't spend time and effort in one, realigning the talent, reskilling the talent, and bringing in an organization culture where you need to start looking at as a digital transformation as something as a whole, and it is not siloed at the business level or at the technology level, right? And this is some two interesting data points if you look at it, right? 78% of the global workforce today look upon their employers to really make them better off across their physical, mental, emotional. Obviously, with the pandemic, the emotional part becomes a big part of it, right? And employment and financial needs. So they really look at these employers, to see how to reskill, retalent themselves to make them employable, right? So this is a very important data point. And 50% of the C-suite, right, post-pandemic, feel they are accountable today for the talent, reskilling, and culture of the organization compared to 35% before the pandemic, right? So a significant change, right? So an organization moving into a cloud digital native or moving from a cloud, a non-cloud native to a cloud native will become a cloud native organization if they just treat technology alone as the problem, right? There is a big part of investing in human element. And the way we look at it is, there is a tight-knit woven ecosystem that is required for a very successful talent strategy, right? So these are the 6 factors if you're looking at it. There is the first part of the business operating model, right? We have to bring in an agile business operating model here. Experimentation should be supported. People, any programs that happens, it cannot go for 6 months, 4 months, right? How do I do a fail fast culture, right? The business and operating model becomes important, right? Leadership, and the leadership, what we have seen is there is a leadership at a level where, it's either on the CIO organization or the CDO organization. Business really doesn't have a digital leadership skills in some cases, or it's, the other way around, right? Having leadership skills at every level becomes important for doing this digital transformation. Then there is the third part of, having your systems, really your engineering processes and tools. Really, you cannot go into the legacy processes and tools and think that, hey, I can still become a digitally transformed company if you don't invest in your technology and tools, right? So that's the third part of it. The fourth is all about organization data design, right? How do I define new roles? The existing roles on a legacy organization would not fit into a digital transformation. So that's the important part which you look at it. Talent realignment, that's the workforce, the future workforce, which we talk about. We really have to reimagine, how the workforce needs to be, right? For us, and we have seen this multiple times, enterprise start needing to invest on this, talent and reskilling, super important, right? There's, very simple thing as from a technology talent, the kind of stacks that's available. How do I retalent from a person who's been working on a legacy technology into, the new age technologies? How do I become, cloud, literate in this whole thing, right? That kind kind of workforce transformation, and this is the future of workforce which we define is important. And the last part is about ways of working, and obviously again with the pandemic, right, virtual working is the order of the day. So how do I enable virtual working? How do I really create the kind of an ecosystem and a culture in spite of people working disparately, right? So talent becomes a very, very important part of this whole thing, right? So that's one of the things which many of us miss, but bringing in a human element in everything we do becomes a critical part on the digital transformation. The last part is about how do we do this business and technology alignment, right? And this is a big part of our story when we see that business really understands what digital transformation needs to do, but technology doesn't deliver, right? The other part is the technology teams think that we have the chops to do this, but business are so illiterate on digital transformation. They really think they are expecting the moon, but we could do something much better, right? So there is a gap between the business and technology, and this continues to happen while a lot of the enterprises continue to move this needle, but what we see is the gap between business and technology is getting farther and farther, right? So what we really think, very quickly, if I look at, the 4 or 5 things, we suggest to our customers a business aligned technology teams, right? So that's the, 5 blocks you are seeing, how technology and marketing, when we are talking about marketing, how technology becomes an integral part of it. When it's supply chain, when it's planning and manufacturing, how business and technology work together in each of this. So effectively, the technology understands the impact of the business and business realizes what technology can deliver for them. One strong thing we have been suggesting is in this space is a 2-in-a-box product management model. And very clearly, many of the CIO, CDO organizations don't have a product management practice. They are typically project managers, who definitely know how to execute a program, but, they don't have, why the business is requiring, what is the kind of UX the business is expecting, right? What is really impacting the customers, right? And this is something, in the course of the digital transformation, we say that start implementing a 2-in-a-box product management model where a BPM and a TPM works together on everything that is related with the product and the customer needs. Now the TPM really understands why the BPM is pushing for it, and the PPM would also understand that some of this is already there. We should be able to leverage the existing technologies, and some of them should not be implemented for the sensitivities of privacy, security, and a lot more things, right? So getting into a TPM BPM model becomes critical, right? And that we have seen really genuinely clearly links between the business and technology. The last part here is what we call as the digital literacy or digital dexterity. This is, again, it's not, only with the business or only with the technology, right? So what we really, talk about here is each technology, whether I'm working on the foundation layer, I'm working on the engagement layer, need to understand the impacts of the customer. How do I become a digital literate in this? And the same story with the business side of the equation, right? So that's, a few things which we have created as part of our digital literacy program. How we really walk the customer through this stuff. And this is the, 4th thing that is super important, right? So if I look at it, having your talent, reskilled, retrained, having your organization culture set up properly, that's going to be important. Exploiting, the cloud providers and creating the 3-layered architecture, that would be the second part of it. And the third part of it is definitely, how, business and IT needs to come together in this digital transformation. So quickly, just to summarize, so this is how, we look at it. A digital enterprise success is just not about technology, but a transformation across the leadership, engineering, and operating models, right? So if I look at, a kind of a framework, the leftmost is the leadership, culture, and talent, which, a really communicable strategy across the organization, getting the right culture across the organization, talent across all the towers in an organization, right? So that's leadership, culture, and talent. We talked about product and portfolio management. It's not only with the business, it's with the technology people as well, right? Having a clear product management principles becomes important. And the 3 things when you're talking about the technology side, right? The engineering practices, the engineering systems, and the modern architectures, right? And we talked about the 3-layered architecture, how we really evolve this and have the right kind of engineering tools and practices coming in here. So what we effectively suggest is, this is a typical blueprint, not that this is the only way of doing it, but we think, if we look at with this lens, most of the time, you can be successful, right? And you can accelerate the transformation. Obviously, we keep saying, culture would eat strategy before breakfast. We need to ensure that all these things are taken care. The first foremost thing is the leadership, culture, and talent. That's super important. Product management, which I talked about. Then the three layers of engineering. How do I bring in a tiered architecture? How do I bring in new engineering tools? And don't invent things, right? That is something which many of our customers want to build a lot of things when there's a lot of things that could be enabled by the cloud providers, right? How do I really take every ounce of intelligence the cloud providers provide? And that is how you evolve your modern architectures, right? And then getting an operating model which cuts across business, technology, your IT systems. How do I really link all these three things? And the last part is the ecosystem for us, right? Because in the world of digital transformation, your partners becomes important. So when I talk about product management, what I need to build, what I need to enable becomes important, right? I'm just throwing the product management, but this is part of everything you implement, whether it's on the business side, core technology side, or on the product management side, right? So that becomes a critical part as well. So, and the last thing is, again, the whole circle is, this is not something, a very linear process. You need to circle back and, you course correct on your leadership, culture, and talent. Again, take the right steps, right? And it should be a very agile way of working. And that's something we keep suggesting. It's not that you set a vision and then think that it is going to, really flow through the complete organization. A 2-week sprint, exactly like an agile model. How do I keep revisiting and, having the course correction that needs to happen, right? Otherwise, it becomes too late and we think that's a digitally transformed company, but effectively it is not delivering the value of digital transformation, right? So that's my quick thing for the 20 minutes. I'm not sure whether we have time for questions, Emily, but very happy to take questions.
Thank you for that riveting keynote, Ram. I'm sure our audience took away some great insights. We have quite a few questions coming in from the audience. Merci beaucoup pour vos questions. One of the questions, are there any specific technologies that have seen a significant increase in adoption due to COVID? And what has been some of the ROI from the adoption, Ram?
Yeah, so good question. For the way we look at it is obviously the technology skills are completely changing, right? For the way I would do it on the application level, we are looking at more like full stack developers who really understand just not the front end or the back end, but the complete full stack. That's number one, right? From a technology stack, we don't have a preference. Java is still in there, Golang is picking up, but those are the things depends on the organization. But moving from a monolith world to microservices, and that gives a flexibility for many of the organizations, right? So you don't, there are people who are very, very good in specific technology stack. When you move from the world of monoliths to microservices, retaining that kind of talent, giving them that flexibility is happening. So that's one part of it, right? The second part of it, very important on the data, AI, ML, all those things, what we really see is there is enough tools and technology, but the biggest power is what the cloud providers provide. How do I exploit it, right? So being cloud literate is becoming more and more important in this transformation, whether you get GCP certification, AWS, or Azure certification, getting into this stuff. And the third part, which we really see, and this is very important as you go to this technology part of the digital transformation, is containerization and Kubernetes, right? This is going to be a very, very important part because people really getting into this world of making the speed, what I saw, economies of speed, and how do I do innovation at speed? Containerization, really building loads at almost every day at like in a 24-hour period becomes important, right? So how do I exploit the infrastructure? Kubernetes and becomes an important part of it, right? And the talent here is super scarce as well, right? So how do we really train your talent into this stuff? So that's how I would put on this. But most of the technology stack, if we are cloud literate, a lot of things starts falling in place. And if you really move your systems from a monolith to microservices.